to order the April 22nd, 2025 meeting of the Beacon City School District Board of Education. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Vicki, can you call the roll? Here. Here.
Here.
Here. Excused.
Here.
Excused. Here. Here. Matt, can you review the fire exits?
Exits are in the back of the LGI.
Yes, they are. Open to the public. Does anyone have a public comment that they would like to make? Unless you are invisible, you do not. Okay, so we are going to start with the workshop tonight. So we're going to get a final budget update from Matt and Anne Marie.
That's hers, I think. I think it's.
All right, so we kept many of the slides from our last presentation that we will not go over, but we have them in this in case people have questions and we want to go to those. We do have some new slides tonight. So just to kind of review where we're at, what the board is voting on tonight is the overall budget number. Okay, so I don't say that's it because that's obviously really important, but like that is the number that is being approved tonight. I also want to say we'll try to go through to the best of our ability, different aspects of the budget, what went into our thinking with this. There should be no surprises, but please just ask questions whenever. You don't have to save them to the end. We're happy to get into as many. We may have some things not on a slide yet, or we didn't think to put it on a slide, and just ask, and we'll probably add it for like the budget hearing presentation and our community presentations too. The very first superintendent I ever worked for as a principal, Kevin Kastner, he always, whenever he talked about the budget, he always talked about how it shows our values and our beliefs as a community and as a district. And so, back in February, I talked about kind of combining the board goals and the strategic plan stuff under these 4 areas: academic excellence and readiness, communication and community outreach, culture of care, facilities and fiscal sustainability. I'm not going to read everything on there, but we've gained a lot over the years with our budget, and I think it's been very much driven by student need and feedback from the community and our stakeholders in the community. The one thing I'll say for this part is just about the sustainability part in terms of fiscal sustainability. One of the things that, I'm as far from perfect as possible, but one of the things I'm proud of here in the district is things we've rolled out. We haven't had to pull back in terms of new programming, new staffing, those kinds of things. Our goal is to always continue that, barring issues outside of our control. So where we came from, this is, we probably could quibble with some of the dates on here, but it shows a pretty clear progression of things that we've been adding to the budget over the years. So I just want to briefly hit on a few of these. The class size reduction initiative was one of the first things that we tackled as a district and as a board. Over the years, we added about 8 elementary teachers to lower class size. When I came in 8 years ago, many of our classes at the elementary level were bigger than our middle and high school classes, and we wanted to fix that. We were able to add instrumental music through a grant first, and then we added it to the budget in 2019. I think if you ask any music teacher in the district, it's really been a foundational piece to the growth of instrumental music in the district. To have kids have 2 years of instrumental at the elementary level has been really key. When I attended the Music in Our Schools concert for the high school last month, both the number of students in the overall band, but then the number of ensembles and specialty groups was just sort of mind-boggling, the growth there and the way we've been able to meet kids' needs. We had several small jazz combos. We have, a large jazz ensemble, both at the middle school and the high school level. So we should really be proud of our growth there. 8 years ago when I came, the jazz group spanned middle through high school, and it was about 4 kids and the teacher playing. And now we have, 2 huge jazz groups, one middle school, one high school, with a lot of jazz combos. And that's just part of what we're doing there. Mental health, over the years we've added 2 social workers and a guidance counselor to the middle school. Really crucial to keep meeting the needs of our students. Curriculum, we've added a lot of different things under there. I'm going to make one change to this slide moving forward, and I'm going to add extracurriculars with curriculum, because around that time is when we began the exponential growth with extracurriculars in terms of clubs, especially for elementary and middle school. So first with the curriculum piece, the Science 21 piece, a really experiential science learning program at the elementary has been fully phased in. We started HMH into reading this current school year for grades 3 to 5, and this is just a sample. We added the Italian language program, so that was one of the things when I first came about only having one language. We've been able to add a second, multiple college level courses, 9-period day at the high school. In terms of the extracurriculars and the clubs, we went from really just having maybe one club at each elementary school. Usually it was like the running club, and now there's dozens. We're close to about 50 to 60% of elementary students are engaged in some sort of club in any given year. Roundabouts clubs have expanded at an exponential level too. High school, we've added some, but they already had a long tradition of having clubs. My belief, and it's backed by research regarding clubs, is students who participate in 1 to 2 extracurricular activities have a much, much higher chance of graduating from high school than students who don't. If you're in a club in like 1st grade or 3rd grade or 5th grade, I think you're much more likely to continue that after school muscle, so to speak, and join clubs as you move through the district. Pre-K, we've always had pre-K through UPK funding. Before 22, it was a half-day program, which is what most districts, not only in Dutchess but the region, still offer. We started piloting the full-day pre-K, and we've added it to where we have 110 slots currently, and it's been a huge success. Really meeting the needs of our students, our families, and it's been pointed out to me that our pre-K program, students have all the special classes. They go to art, they go to music, they go to PE. Most pre-K classes do none of that. They're in the school building the entire day. Most pre-K programs do not do that either. So this is something I think we should be really proud of in terms of we really stand out for what we offer there. And then partnerships. I may do a slight edit to this because we're proposing for next year a partnership with Astor for mental health as well. But we've had a partnership with Common Ground and Land to Learn in Clearwater for years. We piloted one with Compass Arts. I know probably some of you saw the play or the musical that Compass Arts did with South Avenue students a couple of weeks ago. It was awesome. And so we want to formalize that. These aren't high cost things, but I think they really provide really valuable programming for our students. So I went into this pretty deeply at the last board meeting. I won't spend a ton of time here, but things, and one thing I do want to say is this isn't, if you add all of this up, it's not a massive budget initiative here. These are really smaller type things. The summer student workshops at BHS, that's for incoming 9th grade students and also students interested in taking a college level class. It offers kind of like a 2 or 3 day program to get them ready for those experiences. We're really excited about the site-based mental health clinic at Roundabout and the Bright program at BHS, which really targets feedback we were receiving about needing to provide more mental health support. the halftime speech teachers to help meet student IP needs, intervention teachers at the elementary level. The first order of business is to add a fourth math intervention teacher. We only have 3 between the 4 schools. It's become difficult to share. We, through our data, have a need there. And then on top of that, to add some reading intervention teachers too. At the last meeting, SAGI went deep into the professional development. We always fund professional development every year, so that's not really like a new initiative. However, it's very, very focused. And again, this is based on our data, but also based on feedback from our survey. It's really focused on science of reading, and not just for elementary teachers, but also middle school. So we want to switch gears and just talk about the tax cap and the tax levy. I'm going to take a shot at some of these. Anne-Marie, you're going to be the bullpen and come in and save me. But you know, one of the things about Beacon's tax cap calculation this year, we just wanted to go a little bit deeper into it. One of the things factoring into it this year is the tax-based growth factor. So a couple things about that. One is that number is determined by the state, so that's not our determination, and it is based on the amount of new construction that's in the district. Beacon has the highest tax-based growth factor in Dutchess County, so this isn't a bad thing, but it does drive the tax levy number up a little bit because the state feels with all the new construction coming on that we have the ability to spread the tax impact across more new housing and more new businesses. How did I do?
Correct.
Pretty
Very
good. Do you want to add anything?
No, that was great.
I'm going to let you do allowable growth factor.
So allowable growth factor is one of another calculation as part of the whole tax cap calculation. And I think that the confusing part is this is where they have the 2%, that everybody said, oh, the tax cap has to be 2%. So you're allowed to grow the levy by the average consumer price index or 2% at the max. So our consumer price index is definitely higher than 2, so we are kind of at the max of 2 right now. So you first do the tax-based growth factor calculation, then you do the allowable growth factor calculation, and then the last piece of it that we felt important was the capital exclusion. So you are allowed to add back to the levy, to increase the levy by the amount of debt you have, principal and interest payments for your capital projects, and then you subtract building aid from that. And so that amount gets to be added back. It's called an exclusion because to do a capital project, it should not be included as part of the tax cap calculation. So it's an add back. And then part of the 2024 capital project that was voted on last May, we had talked about there having a tax impact, which means that our levy was going to go up a little more to pay for this 2024 capital project, and that's what you're seeing in the capital exclusion. So the capital exclusion number is more than what it has been to reflect the local share for the oncoming 2024 capital project.
So this slide is specifically about the 2024 capital project. It was voted on last May. Excuse me, it was approved by around 80% of the people who voted. And we're excited to add something, and we're gonna, we did a couple of these slides right this afternoon before submitting them to you, so we're gonna kind of highlight a couple of things after tonight. But some of the things we're focusing on are more secure school entrances. In the 2021 project, we did that with Glenham. We're going to do that with the remaining schools, and we're trying to create a schedule that's one of the things addressed first. When we talked about this capital project, we talked about the creation of cooling centers, so that's still on track. However, we're really excited to add our architecture team, our engineering team, with our facilities team have come up with a plan to also add air conditioning to what we're going to say right now is up to 50% of our elementary classrooms. We talked about that at the last facilities meeting. I ran it past our facilities folks today, and they felt okay with me saying it tonight in the board meeting. It could even be, depending on depending on a lot of different factors, it could even be more than 50%. So they've done some, and this is all within that same budget, but they've done some really great thinking about ways to increase cooling. So one of the things driving this is there's a law, a heat index law now that impacts all the districts in New York. We have to have a policy and a plan to deal with extreme heat situations in our schools. Last June, I have to go back and check. I think I did 2 half days at the end of the year due to extreme heat. So I think we're going to see there's going to be more of those situations. This will allow us to have school and have it in a comfortable learning environment. There's both common sense and a lot of studies that talk about the positive impact of air conditioning on student learning. And so we're really excited that we're going to be able to add quite a few elementary classrooms to the air conditioning list. It's not all going to happen in 2026. It's going to happen over 26, 27, and 28. So it's going to take a bit of time to get it all done, but we're excited about that. Infrastructure improvements that we will always continually need, like roofing and bathrooms and things like that. Upgrades to the baseball and softball fields at BHS. So I know we're currently in a drought, but if we're in a rainy spring, oftentimes there's been years where I've been here where the baseball softball team literally doesn't play home game for 2 or 3 weeks because of rain. This will eliminate that through some better drainage and better fields. Renovations at the Seeger Theater. We've met with all the folks who use the theater and come up with a pretty comprehensive list of things that need to be improved there. I'm excited about the baseball, softball fields and the Seeger Theater because those things, the Seeger Theater is used by the community quite a bit. As you're aware, upgrades to the baseball and softball fields will allow those to be used by the community more. And we're excited about making that available once those changes happen too. The former Little League coach to me is excited about that because, I would predict oftentimes that the fields wouldn't be ready because it would rain like 24 hours in advance of the game. And just because Memorial Field has so many problems with drainage too. So we could lend some help to that as well. All right, so this is, we just wanted to put the budget numbers up again, and the number we're voting on tonight is
the budget number is $87,720,000, and that's a 4.61% budget-to-budget increase from last year. The things to kind of just are notable on this slide is the state aid number. So as you all know, we don't have a final state budget, so we're still using the governor's estimate because we're not sure, what the final number will be. And that's kind of the guidance that we were kind of instructed to use. It also includes some building aid on the 2021 capital project. So when the governor's run comes out, it does not reflect building aid that we generated on final cost reports that were filed last June. So that number is higher. If you just looked at the governor's run based on last year, we're closer to a 2% increase, which is the 2% foundation aid that she had given at a minimum to all districts. So I thought that was important to mention. That number is higher because we are going to receive some building aid on the 2021 project. That part of it is completed. And then the tax levy, I thought an important part of that is the $50 million of tax levy that is at the cap. That is what our tax cap calculation is. So we're not going more than that. It's a simple majority. And it's also going to be spread over an anticipated more properties, more houses, more businesses. We just don't happen to know that number until July when we get the new assessments from the city. But I did a quick analysis of what our assessments have done over the last 9 years. And as an average, they've increased over 7%. So some years were 13%, some were 10%, so as an average of 7%. So since 2015-16, our assessments have grown. And it's not just a change in someone's assessment on their home. it is additional properties coming on the tax roll. So there's some confusion. Sometimes I get questions from people like, well, you're getting more money because there's more houses and there's more businesses, but that isn't how it works. The tax cap, the levy amount has to stay the same based on the calculation. The good part of that is you spread it over more people. And so what that's done over the years, it's made our tax rate per thousand decrease. So as our assessments were increasing, our tax rate was decreasing. So I think that's an important part as well. So when we go.
I'm going to stay on this just for a second.
Okay.
We did make a slide for what I'm going to say next, and these numbers are a little bit rough. But if the tax levy went down to, just hypothetically, because it's easy to do this way, 4.09, it would be about $600,000 less in revenue. If we went down to 3.09, it'd be about 1.2 million. And so I just want to go back for a second. So if we went down to 4.09, these things would be off. We would not be doing these. We'd probably still have to do some of the PD, right? But a lot of the PD would have to come off. A lot of these would come off. And we'd have to then start going into this, right? So we'd have to start backtracking on some of these things. So, this is obviously, if we were in a mode where we had to be cutting, it's not just my decision, it's something that we'd all be involved in. But you look at these things and you have to look at, well, what's required, right? And then you start looking at things like full day pre-K or, upping class size, or do we really need to do music in 4th grade, or, do we have to do those partnerships? And I don't like putting these things on slides. I don't like getting into like that sort of negativity or threats around things. But, if we went down like a full percentage point or two, like we would be backing, into these gains we've made over the last few years, and we'd be having to eliminate some of them to make our budget. I just wanted to point that part out. We totally understand any concern around this, and that's why we created a couple more slides to at least address some of them. So we just wanted to.
Sorry, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, sorry.
Is the federal income or federal revenue, is that counted in miscellaneous on the last slide?
Federal revenue is counted separately,
Okay, so this is not including federal
not
revenue.
including federal, right? Federal has to be accounted for in a separate fund. So this is just what impacts taxpayers and what they vote on.
And this is also not a slide, but our federal funds are about 1.7. How much?
About 1.7.
1.7 million. So it covers our reading teachers. It supports some of our like ENL, our English as a New Language curricular materials, some special ed. So obviously, if we lost federal funding for other reasons, we would cover. Those are things we would fund, right? So we'd have to, go back. I'm not going to keep doing this, but we'd have to go back into this and reduce these things to cover those. And that's something that I've said this a few board meetings. Like we're doing some worst case scenario planning for that because that possibility is there regarding federal funds. As universities seem like the first ones being hit with that. So just we tried to create just some the tax levy rate is a complex thing. There's like 8 different things that go into the creating the number. But we tried to create just some simple language around it. It refers to the total tax increase that we can raise across an entire district. It's not how much an individual taxpayer pays. It's not the increased individual taxpayer pays. If new properties are added to the tax rolls, tax burden is shared by more people, which may lower individual amounts. Again, back to that tax-based growth factor. Beacon has the highest one in Dutchess County, so the state and other people who monitor this are seeing all the building happening in Beacon, and they're seeing that there will be new properties added to our rolls. And then lastly, all of what we're talking about tonight is at the tax cap. It is not over. It would only require a simple majority, so 50% plus one. If we were to go over the tax cap, that requires a supermajority, so that's not what we're doing. We're not close to proposing that. We've seen this question come up. Are school taxes affected by our purchase of EV buses last year? So last year, we kind of have a 2-year history with this. We voters approved the purchase of one 2 years ago. We were waiting for the grant to come online, and then we realized it would be better to package it together. So last year, we asked the voters to approve 2. We hadn't purchased the one from the year prior. We received the grant. So the grant that we received offset the cost of the EV buses to make it like that it would be the purchase of a regular bus, so to speak. So saying all that, EV bus purchasing with the grant did not increase folks' taxes any more than purchasing gas-powered buses would. Also, we have no bus proposition on the ballot this year, partially due to looking at our tax increase. So,
Okay, so we wanted to give you an idea. So with the budget being what it is and what the levy being what it is, we did an estimate of median home values in Beacon, Fishkill, and Wappingers. So the tax rate right now is all around 12.5, 12.6. An estimated tax increase for the year for Beacon is 175, Fishkill 212, and Wappingers 213. So I talked a little bit before about the tax rate being decreased because there's more properties and more assessments. This tax rate is based on the assessments of last year. I don't have this year's yet. I don't even think the assessor has finished that information. So what we found is every year when we do the budget hearing and we present, the number ends up being much less than that when we do the tax warrant in the summer. And the reason being is that there's more properties, so just, it's not really about your particular home assessment increasing, although it does. It's more about the newer properties that are coming on the tax rolls, and it's making the tax rate. So I always look at this as the worst case scenario, that this would be the maximum amount that someone would pay. So that is for the tax levy the way it is. That includes the budget and the additional increase into the debt because of the 2024 capital project. And again, we're, in the summer, in August, when we do the tax warrant, we then compare this and, over the last 9 years, we have seen the tax rate decrease based on that. And it kind of all ties into the tax-based growth factor. They know we're building, and so there's more properties, and so we can spread it over more people.
So we didn't have this slide the last time, but this is a comparison of the tax rates by school district in Dutchess. You can see where Beacon is. If you, just to be blunt, if you did the same graph for average pay for all the different employee units in the district, it would look something like that as well. It transfers pretty clearly to that. We probably maybe one or two of the districts on this end would go to the other side of Beacon. I've said this in probably dozens of different board meetings. We've been really working hard to get more in the middle for pay, and then beyond. We want to be able to recruit and retain our employees and value the ones we have. But this is where we stand with the other districts in terms of tax rate. And then we did this slide last time. We just sort of rearranged the houses so they're in ascending order. But this is just, what that same median home that would be in our school district, that, the yearly tax bill would be for Wood and Beacon, and then comparing us to, when I say, I think I used the word competitors in the previous meeting. And when I say competitors, it's around hiring, it's around retaining employees primarily. That's when I talk about competing. I'm not really talking about like student competitions. I'm talking about hiring and retaining folks. But That's what folks with the same valued house would be paying in those districts.
Matt, before you move on, can I just ask?
Yeah.
That median home value, I get questioned on this by people that I know. So 304,000, that's all the homes in our school district? And like, what's median
in the-
again? I get confused, median mode and things.
So
So-
Eric, there's a report in the info tax program that can run the median home value, that the 304,700 is Beacon.
Okay.
The Fishkill and Wappingers is not that much different.
Okay.
And it does seem low.
That's why I'm asking it. Everyone asks me, where do you find a $304,000 home? It's just, right?
Right. It is the calculation. I will change it every year and ask our tax collector to
Okay.
rerun it. And I also know that, obviously in Beacon, there's homes that are worth a great deal more.
Right.
Same thing in all those other 4 municipalities. It's
Okay.
just, I tried to make it apples to apples to try to, I know that there are houses that are less, that are assessed less, maybe some of the older houses in Beacon that they might have a value if they're sold of $700,000-800,000, but on their tax bill, their assessment still might be lower.
Right, so it's based on the assessment. And so, okay, so that means that there's, okay, all right.
There's like neighborhoods, I know, we asked about this in the past. My understanding is if there's lots of homes that have sold and there's been turnover and they've sold at a higher rate, and that might trigger a reassessment in your neighborhood.
Right,
But what you paid for the house, and if you haven't moved and you've been there a long time, your taxes have only gone up incrementally. And so it's the way the taxes are evaluated about how it's assessed, not like what it could sell for.
right.
That's how it's like, it's grabbing the net of everybody here and, who's been here for a long time and then people who are new. So it'll tick up, but it's still, there's lots of people that haven't sold their house and might have bought it for a lot less
Yeah.
and that's how it's.
It just seems that
It's not like a
the ticking
Zillow.
would have happened faster to me, people selling so many houses, that I would have thought neighborhoods would have tried to catch up, maybe faster, but I don't know.
We've always used median home off of
Our tax program, it runs.
It's not like it's not like a Zillow kind of thing. It's not like
No.
what you
Right.
could sell it for.
but
Right.
we could always have a different value.
We could probably do
house.
what
You know what I mean?
sells
Like we
for or
could,
something.
we could
I'm just
do
trying to
one
get
for
myself, because I don't
600,000.
really
Yeah.
when people ask me, I couldn't answer it, so I didn't know. So that helps me a little bit,
Yeah.
what you're saying, so that I appreciate that.
It is fascinating because we do, we can look at a house and say, wow, they can get $500,000, $600,000, $700,000. But when you actually pull the tax bill, Kristen is 100%
Yep.
right. If it's
Okay.
an older couple who's lived there forever and haven't
Right.
done improvements on the house,
Okay.
the assessment will be lower.
Okay, that makes sense.
I mean,
Thank you.
is the formula? So I'll say the part I don't understand, which is probably not true what I've been saying. But the way I think about this is then I just do a multiplier for whatever you think your house is worth, and that's what your taxes are.
Yeah. Yes. Roughly.
Roughly, yes.
Yeah.
If you think it's helpful in the hearing, I could actually, when we did this with the capital project, one of the slides that we did was if you had a house that was 300, 500, 700,000, what your taxes would
Yeah.
be and what your increase
Oh,
would be.
yeah.
We can do that
So,
too, just
yeah,
to make it
we-
more real.
That
Part
might,
of tonight, if there's other slides you want to see on May 6th, we're
idea.
happy to
That would
create those.
probably be helpful. And then I think it would be, if you did that, because you do this comparison here, it would be kind of interesting to just show that there hasn't been massive increases over time. Like, that for these, do you know what I mean? Like, if we had those different levels,
And then do it on
then
the,
almost like
Oh,
a table of
right.
Yep.
what those tax rates
Right.
have been over the years for those,
Right.
like last 5 years, so that it would just show the trend is not, there hasn't been a big spike.
Right.
okay.
Well, I think, we've had a slide like this for a few years now. This one is new, and I think it's pretty powerful. But I always use this, and this is my sort of inarticulate way of saying it. I think we're getting a lot out of being a lower tax district. With the initiatives that we've been able to implement over the last few years, and so it's a point of pride with me, and I think with our other administrators that we're able to do as much with our other districts in the county, many of them bringing in way more revenue than we are. So just next steps tonight is you're adopting that budget number, or potentially adopting that, or some number. I say community outreach over the next 4 weeks, so that's already begun. I visited the 4 elementary PTOs the week before spring break. The 2 of them were online. One was on a playground. One was in the cafeteria. But really good conversations, pretty good turnout. I think there are some really nice weather days on those, so you're competing against like a lot of kid activities right now. But a lot of great questions. A lot of questions about the capital project. But that's just the start. In May we have all of our school concerts. We have the high school's concert is on election day, is on the voting day. But I'll be attending all of those, and I'm just going to take like 2 minutes at the beginning, just to talk about the budget's impact on music in the schools, and I'll hang around afterwards to just informally talk with whoever wants to. We'll do two like kind of like Zoom webinar type things. And one piece of feedback I've always gotten is people in the community who aren't getting my emails may not know about them. So we'll look to advertise those in some different places so community members can log on to those too. We're working on a couple in-person events that are more community focused. And I'm happy to go back to those school PTOs. I wasn't able to do Roundabout or the high school, so I'm working on doing those. And I'm happy to go back to the elementary. So we're just trying to get the word out and be really clear about all the stuff that we've been talking about in here, what we've accomplished, what we're hoping to accomplish this year, and also getting into some of the difficulties we face in terms of, comparing with other districts and things like that. So on May 6th, part of that community outreach is there is a budget hearing. Here, the state requires the budget hearing to be 7 to 14 days before the election. And so we're doing it 14 days before, so that will be in here, where we'll add some slides to this and add some different pictures and graphics so you're not like looking at the same stuff all the time. But so we'll do that. But like I said, we're over the next couple of days we'll firm up our outreach calendar, and we're excited to answer questions and talk about what we're trying to accomplish here. So, we had all the other slides that we went through the last time. We have them there just in case you had a question. We're not going to go through those. I'm happy to go back to any slide that we went through tonight or answer any question. Or if I think I've got a couple already, but if you have a slide that you think we should add for our public hearing and our community conversations, we tried to make some adjustments based on feedback from the last board meeting. Please let us know. Any questions or?
Yep, anybody? I had a question. Can you just remind me on slide 15, the BOCES services has gone up quite a bit, and I think that's because we moved a lot of things, expenses into BOCES because we got aid back on them?
Yeah, so there's been a huge conscious effort of being able to, and BOCES has been better. If it's not Dutchess BOCES, we then do a cross contract with Putnam Northern, and some other, so Capital Region BOCES, Nassau BOCES. So when a service is offered, it's advantageous for us to join a BOCES as a coaster, because then we receive 57% BOCES aid the following year back.
Probably the bulk of your PD is through BOCES.
Yeah,
Right.
about 85%.
And the community partnerships we mentioned, like we run the Compass Arts one through BOCES.
And Land to Learn also.
And Land to Learn we run through BOCES. So it's our principals have also become very talented at identifying ways to run like a speaker or some experience for their kids to run it through BOCES. Not everything gets approved, but more and more every year does.
Maybe to Meredith's point then, like there's a slide in between these where you kind of show that even though there's been an increase, that there's been a savings by moving this money over here. Like which programs were funneled through BOCES, and then that way it can show, even though there's this increase of $50,000 we've actually saved, and you could probably estimate it.
Right.
And then some
So,
sort of
like, yeah, like
explanation of,
a slide just about how we use BOCES aid, what we get back the next year.
and what the COSAR is.
Right.
Okay. I also think those programs, as like federal funding becomes more volatile, like explaining what New York State is doing and possibly like these options that we have within state to shore up, stretching our dollar more might be helpful. Like kind of just in a box on the bottom.
Anybody else?
I was going to say the last slide, I don't remember that being there about if the assessments increase. I might have missed that the last time. I think that's a good slide about the assessments increase 5%. What's going to
Hold on,
cost.
Which one?
Final slide.
The final slide, 20, I think it's 25,
the one,
way at the end. I didn't remember seeing that part.
That's new.
Is that a new one?
I think so. I don't remember the money back.
I like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is that a new icon? And now I'm reading it.
I think we were piloting this slide,
we were.
and we may not.
I'm actually
I thought it was
glad that
really
you
good.
saw that. I was excited about that. So on the right-hand side, the potential tax impact, we were piloting that information. And the reason we were piloting it is I've not presented that before. I've always only done the one slide that says worst-case scenario.
Right.
But when I mentioned the average
Yeah.
was 5%,
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah,
so
I-
So how about for the hearing, we flesh this one out a little bit more? Because my worry about this one was it would confuse people more. Like, like, what are you
Yeah.
saying? Like that it's only going to be this much. So we'll work on this one a little bit
but
more.
right.
Yeah.
I
But
can
it-
do two different, like I can,
Yeah.
because I have the data of what the assessments have been increasing over the last 9 years.
Okay.
Okay.
I have one more question.
I know. We were so excited about that too.
I have one more question. The use of reserves
And fund balance.
and fund balance. So is that coming from a specific reserve fund of ours or
It is coming from fund balance.
just
It's-
from unappropriated?
We always, as part, right before the audit comes, we always evaluate our reserves because we have to make sure they match what they're meant to be. But most of that is fund balance. So the $2.5 million is lower than we've done in the past, but it's, as part of our auditors tell us to really be careful about not appropriating too much fund balance to use. Just right now, our fund balance is at 5%. It should be at 4%. It has been at 6%. Other districts, it's much more, and they have a different conversation with. But that's really our safety net in case anything happened that we would need. So we want to maintain it to a certain extent. So we don't want to go too
I do
much.
think it's important to say that, it should be at 4. That's the state's rule, but NISBA has consistently advocated for it to be higher than that.
Yes.
And it's commonly agreed that that's actually too low as a safety net for districts.
Yes.
So you're saying add a slide about?
I don't know. I mean, this is already 25 slides. I feel like that, I think that's okay. But I think it is important to note that is reducing the levy. That is something that a tool we're using to reduce the levy. We could put that money into reserves, but we're using it to.
Well, some
Do
of these
we
slides, we can kind of quickly go through. Chris, would you say add a federal funding slide, even though it's not part of, this, like to do a little bit on federal funding?
I think there's just so much like confusion and uncertainty about federal that trying to clarify that a little bit could be helpful. I think if we do, a question I have now, I wasn't sure whether to ask it, is like the expenditures also adds up to 87.7. So I think what y'all were saying was that the federal revenue is like 1.7 million, and that pays for things that aren't reflected in the expenditure slides
Correct.
here. Is that right?
That's correct. So they are accounted for separately.
Yeah.
So if we lost federal funding, those expenditures would have to be
Right.
incorporated into the general fund, and
Right.
other things would have to be reduced. We could do a very simple slide showing what the federal money covers and how much we currently get.
I think that would be
I
helpful.
do think that.
think
that's
that's
I think it's a good
yeah.
idea.
Okay.
Okay. And, just to be clear, and I'm not the expert on this, but a few weeks ago, the education department sent a letter to state education departments You know, I'll be a little bit inarticulate about what exactly the letter said, but you know, that were wanting states to certify that they were not doing certain things regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion. That would then, you know, asking states to certify it or not certify it, and then sort of threatening funding with that. New York's response came, I think, a day or two later saying, we have already certified this. We've certified it a number of times. We're not certifying it again. I think there was about, I want to say 10 other states that answered in a similar manner, maybe more. And then it's been kind of radio silent ever since then. So you know, I you know, and I said at the last board meeting, like we don't have a slide on it, but like all of those things that the federal government funds are things that we morally should fund, right? Like these are things we could not ignore. We couldn't just say, sorry, we're not going to have the reading teachers this year because the federal funding got pulled. We would have to figure that out. So it would mean cuts in other places for us. It would have a ripple effect. So, you know, I'm not trying to dwell on it too much because it seems to be being negotiated, for lack of a better word, at the state level, the state and federal level, but that is the landscape right now regarding that. So I think it's something that's on the mind of probably every school board and superintendent and probably every single state regarding this. So it's just something that's there. And we, on some level, need to mentally prepare for it. I think the thing that could be really disruptive is if it happened at, like, you know, once the school year began, or, you know, that kind of thing. They're not worried about, if they are worried about that money or pulling that money, they're not worried about our budget timeline, right? So that'd be something that we would deal with. And so I do want to be clear, and it's stating the obvious maybe, but those things, if we did lose that federal funding, we would then come back to you and say, this is how we're covering this out of our own budget. But it would have a cost, where we would have to stop doing some other things to do it. So anyway, that's just a brief thing on that. You know, Googling it and reading actual articles about it would be more educational than hearing, you know, my version of it. But in a sense, that's what it sort of boils down to for New York. And you know, another thing that we're thinking long-term wise is, does state aid continue? You know, so the governor currently proposed a 2% increase. That's what we're building this whole thing off of. The Senate and the legislature, or the Senate and the House, have put forward 3.0 and 2.9 as their proposals. So whenever this budget gets settled, it may end up being a little bit higher than 2. So all you're approving tonight is the overall budget number. But if that changes, I think that would be a conversation at a future board meeting in terms of like how we might utilize that. It might go towards fund balance, using less of it. You know, it could go towards a variety of things. So I think that would be just a future board meeting. It doesn't impact what we're doing tonight in terms of board approval, but that would, once we get that information from the state, I think we talk about it at a future meeting, just in terms of options. So I'm just trying to think of anything else. So we have kind of a list of slides to add. We're not going to go crazy, but I think with some of we're going to try to add just like a little bit of a number story to some of those things we've implemented over the years, just in terms of like number of students and extracurriculars. And, you know, we have the number of pre-K full day, but we'll do a little bit of number stuff to that, just so people can see the bigger impact of those things.
Can I just ask, not having a bus prop, is that a significant dollar amount that we normally, the taxpayer would pay per year? Like, you know, like.
It's divided over 5 years, so it's not a significant amount.
Okay.
I mean, we could run some numbers and come back to the hearing with those. It's not nothing, but
Okay,
it's
it's
not
not
like a
significant. I was
massive-
just going to say, if it was, it would be something that could be a positive of not having the bus prop.
I think we're trying to frame it like that, though, with with this capital project. I mean, we will need to do buses in future years, but it's a year where we
Right.
Right.
don't have to, and it's, you know,
The part of the proposition last May was also for 2 gas diesel buses, which we have not received yet. 'Cause
Right.
they were on order. So it's basically 4 buses we're getting, so there was really no need to do a prop this year.
Yeah, and I'm just asking because if, let's say we're raising this amount, but now we're not doing that prop, does that help at all? Like if I'm a taxpayer to say, okay, they're not doing the bus prop, so that's
It would help the debt
X.
section.
let's, what we'll do
I-
is
I'm
we'll
just,
run
you know-
those numbers a little bit and have that for the hearing. It is something, it may not, you know,
if it's
It
you
may
know,
not
12
be
cents,
super
but I mean, if
exciting
it's
to-
dollars, you know
Right.
what I mean?
it's, no, I hear you, it's something.
Yeah.
And so we will run those too. We'll add it to that bus slide.
I mean, I see it as like just trying to be efficient, right? You know, we have enough, and we have the 2 that we didn't come in. I think that's, you know, the district, you know, working with what we have and, you know, trying to do what's best. So I think it's a positive thing, so.
Anybody else? Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it. Okay, back to the agenda. In terms of changes, Meredith, you had one you wanted to bring up.
I just noticed that the policies are not on this agenda, that we talked about at the last policy committee meeting, and I don't think it's a big deal for most of them, but one of them, we were asking to waive the first read, so I think it was more important, the inventories and accounting of fixed assets. Is that an issue that we need to try to resolve tonight?
Okay.
Okay,
That's part of the target monitoring, and I'll let them know.
okay, great.
Okay, great. So there are no other proposed changes. Can I get a motion to adjourn to executive session to review the employment history of a particular individual?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Meredith, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passes 7-0. The board will return in about 30 minutes. So we missed something earlier. I would love it if everybody could stand, and we'll have a moment of silence for Jan Morell, who is secretary to the superintendent. She retired in 2006. Thank you. Okay. Matt, your superintendent report?
I'll just be brief, but I just wanted to also mention about Jan. I've met her a few times. She worked our elections, right, for many years after retiring. So she was a really special person. So my thoughts go to her family. Just a couple of quick announcements. One, I came a little early tonight, and I kind of snuck in. I didn't want to like ruin anything, but I listened, you know, around the corner, just to Guys and Dolls, getting ready. The Beacon Players doing Guys and Doll this weekend, and it sounds amazing. And just wanted to remind folks that I'm sure there's still some tickets to do that. And then before break, we had, you know, this for the second year. Kids at South Avenue have been doing like an after-school thing with Compass Arts to do a musical there, and they did their performance the week before break, and that was also just really outstanding and heartwarming and all that good stuff. And so, you know, all of it just good reminders of the amazing things our kids can do. And since our budget presentation was super long tonight, that's all I have to say.
All righty. Then we will move on to board comments and committee reports, starting with Semra.
Yeah, thanks for the clarity on those slides. I think hopefully it's helpful to the community to, you know, understand what we're doing and why. And I thought the play at South Avenue was great as well. My daughter was one of them.
Congratulations.
That's all.
All right, Kristen?
Yes, amazing presentation. The narrative is really sort of coming through, and it's much more easily understood, I think, especially in a year there's a little bit more complexity. Tomorrow night at 7, there is an audit committee meeting.
6:30.
I am
I'll see you at 7.
Six, right?
Wait, where is
Oh,
it in this
the-
room?
The first
There's a Zoom. or
group is
something.
6:30. If we could assemble at least a little bit before that, just to organize ourselves.
In here, in the.
And we're at the district office.
Okay.
Oh,
I will
great.
text a reminder.
Yeah, no, I
That
will
is
be
a
here first,
that is a serious challenge.
and then I will be there.
Turn the
To the, yeah.
car or bike or feet towards the district office.
Wait, is the district, so where's this meeting that I'm chairing?
District office conference room, there's new furniture in there.
What?
Well, it's probably been needed for at least 6 or 7 years, I think, and
Not to go.
I gotta test.
two are zooming in.
First one is zooming in, the second one is in person, the third one is zooming in.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Is
That's
that
it.
everything? Okay, great. Chris?
No comments tonight, thanks.
All righty. Levon?
No comments, thank you.
Okay, Eric?
Just a reminder, I believe May 6th, we're still, Facilities Committee is at 6 o'clock. We continue to work on the upcoming facilities capital project, so we're moving along and doing some great work there. And I wanted to also just thank Matt and Anne Marie for the clarifications tonight. I've kind of been a little bit of a thorn in Matt's side over the past couple of days with some questions, and he really helped out tonight, and I thought did a great job, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, Meredith?
I also thought it was a great presentation. I think it's really important to understand that this budget doesn't exist in a vacuum, that we are impacted by the state, we're impacted by the federal, and we're impacted by, having to plan for the future, not just this year. So thank you. I think I think there's a lot of great communication there. We had a policy meeting on the 10th, and there are a few policies that will be on the next agenda. And our next policy meeting is on May 20th, which is also the canvas of the votes. So I think we're going to do the policy meeting at 8 o'clock. That's what we decided. And then I also wanted to let everyone know that tonight there's a meeting at Texaco. I know some people that are there, so I'll report back on that. But I think it sounds like things are heating up a little bit there, so I'll try to get some more information for you on that. And also, I was at a meeting on Friday with the Fishkill Town Supervisor and a bunch of people from Empire State Development about the downstate property and the developers who are called Conifer. And there's not really a lot to report there. They still haven't really settled on the number of units. There's a lot of back and forth between them and the fire department about what is feasible. But in general, I did ask them, what would the timeline be? When would the first person be, handed keys? And it sounded like 5 years at a minimum. So I will keep you updated on that.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to just say thank you for the presentation as well. And I feel like this series of discussions that we've been having around the budget has really helped me to understand how you're arriving at the numbers, but also what that money is accomplishing. And I think it's so important for us to remember that, especially right now. I feel like there's so much uncertainty. There's uncertainty around what our foundation aid is going to look like in the future. There's absolutely uncertainty around what our federal funding is going to look like in the future. And I feel like our budget is such a great balance of providing opportunity, but also being responsible. I just really appreciate how thoughtful it is. And I can tell that a lot of thought and care has been put into this, and it feels realistic, and it feels manageable both on the taxpayer side and on the student achievement side. So I really appreciate that, and I fully support it. And I thought this would be a good opportunity, since we're going to segue into Board of Ed business, and we're going to start with the vote, for everybody to just go around and maybe say any thoughts that they have about tonight's vote, about the budget itself. If you feel like you've said all you need to say, then you can just say, yes, I've said what I need to say and I support it or whatever. But I think it would be good for us to just go around and each of us share our thoughts about it before we vote. Eric, can we start with you?
Sure. I'm in support of the budget. I did have some earlier questions about where we were with the levy increase, but I feel that what we're proposing is best for the students and for the district. And and again, I just appreciate, like you said, the work that's been done to make this, I think, efficient and what's best for everybody in the district. So I am in favor of it.
Okay, great. Chris?
Yeah, I'm also in favor. I think it's a big responsibility to ask for these resources from the community, but I think the district and Matt in particular has done such a good job of being responsive to both voices through surveys and data that we're seeing about what our students need, and just responsive to a lot of inputs. So I think the investments that we're proposing here are really important for our students. And I echo your thoughts, Flora, about the kind of responsible and even really conservative nature of not overshooting where we could be going if we wanted to ask for sort of like everything. So to me, it strikes that balance in a way that is responsible and will kind of contribute to the sustainability of serving Beacon students.
Great, thanks. Meredith?
I agree with both of you, and I think that, after having like a really, really tight budget last year, it's nice to be able to add these intervention teachers that I think we really need, as we're still seeing these gaps from COVID. So I think this has been a good process this year, an even better process than years before. I think we're starting to explain this better for the community to understand, because it, like you said, it is a lot to ask of the community. This isn't the tax system I would choose, but it's the one we have, and so I think we're doing the best we can with it.
Agreed. Kristen?
Yeah, I think echoing what everyone else has said about the how valuable this process has been, how intentional it has been, and what has been added. I think the other key thing that really stands out for me is that we have very carefully over time added and built from a place of lack, honestly. Mm-hmm. And our programs have been put in sort of very with a lot of effort, and over time we've created something that is now feels like a much stronger foundation, that's almost like a flywheel, that it took us a good bit of time to get going, and now anything we add, anything that we continue to do has the potential to have that much more efficiency behind it as we put it in place. That's the music program being a great example. Looking at fourth grade music added only a few years ago to now having all of these ensembles and all of these different opportunities and all of these things at not a lot of additional cost, if any, really, other than that first investment in that program and then finding some really good teachers. These are the things that you create efficiency by creating that sort of strong root system. We've really been building that root system. The thing that I do not want to see is to move backward in any way. Mm-hmm. And I think this is set up to weather some pretty strong headwinds, and even has some flexibility in it if we hear different numbers or if something shifts a little bit, that we can still maintain that strong foundation and continue to build and hopefully get into more tailwinds, so to speak. So yeah, I'm in favor of this budget.
Great.
I'm also in favor. I'll just take the baton from you, thinking about where we were, and that this budget feels like a really future, thoughtful in a future way. We've addressed a lot of issues from the past, and now we're really thinking about the future and how we can continue to build programming. And I've seen it in the just few years I've been here, the amount of programming that came online within just a few years. It's transformational, and we want to support the great teachers we have here and keep them, and that's the backbone to me. And I feel like we're building a capital and an organizational budget that's responsible and great for our students.
I'm also in support of the budget. I do appreciate the slides that you guys have put together for us and the information provided. I think it's clear for the taxpayers and what they'll be expecting. Also, the time that you took to show that it's student first mentality and to show that the progress we have made over the years and how we do want to sustain that. So I'm in support of this budget.
All right, great. So moving on to 9.01, Vicky, does this have to be a roll call vote or can, okay. So do I just say, do you, do,
First, second, and then
okay,
I'll take the roll call.
okay, great. So can I get a motion to approve 9.01, adopting the proposed school year budget for the 25-26 school year?
So moved.
Kristen, second?
Second.
Second by Meredith? Okay.
Ms. Harrison?
Yes.
Ms. Flynn?
Yes.
Mr. Lewine?
Yes.
Ms. McNair?
Yes.
Mr. Shitter?
Yes.
Ms. Hewer?
Yes.
Ms. Stadler?
Yes. Passes 7-0. Now, for the other three, do we have to do those as roll call as well, or just that one?
I've always done them separately, just so that we have like the record of them, but if you want to group those together, I can just take the roll for them.
Okay, I mean, I don't mind doing them separately. I just meant, like, can I do all in favor for those individually? Okay, then that, I think that's easier. So can I have a motion to approve 9.02, the property tax report card and school district budget?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 7-0. Can I have a motion to approve 9.03, the Dutchess County BOCES 25-26 administrative budget?
So moved.
Move, second. Second by Summer, all in favor?
Aye.
Ayes, passes 7-0. Okay, so for 9.04, this is electing the Dutchess County BOCES board members. There are a total of 3 vacancies. There are 5 candidates. We've got Ralph Chumento, Mark Fleschauer, Bryce Holland, Judy Moran, and Gully Stanford, or Sanford, I can never remember. We can only vote for 3 candidates per total, so I'm going to propose that we do a single vote for a slate of 3, and that we just go with the candidates that we originally nominated. So that was Gully, Mark, and Bryce. Is everybody okay with doing this?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So can I get a motion to approve 9.04? It's not to vote Gully, Stanford, Mark Fleschauer, and Bryce Holland to the BOCES board.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second by Kristen. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 7-0. Whew. All right. Moving on to the consent agenda. The use of the consent agenda permits the Board of Education to make more effective use of its time by adopting a single motion to cover those relatively routine matters which are included. Any member of the board who wishes to discuss individually a particular piece of business on the consent agenda may so indicate, and that item will be considered and voted on separately, thus preserving the right of all board members to be heard on any issue. Are there any items that any board members would like to have removed from the consent agenda?
I have one, 12.05E4.
12.05E4. Okay. So can I have a motion to approve 11.01 through 15.03 minus 12.05E4?
So moved.
So moved. Second?
Second.
Second by Kristen. Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Passes 7-0. Okay, can I have a motion to approve 12.05E4?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
I forgot to do comments or questions. I'm sorry. Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Abstaining?
Abstain.
Okay, passes 6-1. 1 abstaining. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion.
And second?
Second.
All right, comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 7-0. Good night.